This
Get
podcast
it.
contains serious content served with a dollop of humor.
Play, think, listen, learn. Play,
The
think,
plan you're
listen,
looking for is here.
listen, learn. Play,
One moment. Let me get my
listen,
phone set.
learn, play,
I'm feeling
listen,
good.
play,
Hi,
listen,
we're here and we're a little
play,
weird.
think,
Can I
listen,
just say how
learn,
happy that
play,
makes my heart?
think,
I'm gonna
listen,
leave it by the door. My mouth broke, so I can't come inside.
Welcome to this special episode of the Childcare Resources Provider Support Podcast Series, brought to you by the Couch Coaching Quintet and being recorded in the virtual presence of a live and maybe even excited Zoom audience. More on that in a moment.
Yes.
But first, some introductions. From caricature left to caricature right, I'm Mike.
I'm Adrian.
I'm Marie.
Hey, I'm Viv.
And this is Chris.
Also with us today is our episode producer, Laura Brozis. Laura will be monitoring chat for us, and from time to time, you may hear her voice as well. Laura?
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura.
On behalf of the Couch Coaching Quintet, I want to thank the coaches and other early learning professionals from throughout the state of Washington who have decided to join us today during a lunchtime pause in the Elevate conference sponsored by Childcare Aware of Washington. We are grateful for the chance to brilliantly soar or possibly crash to earth while holding forth on the conference theme of Refresh, Renew, and Reach. Audience members, we advise you to be patient during the early going. Oh yes, you will be sitting in silence or at least muted on Zoom. However, at the end of this recording session, during our lightning round, you will have the chance to make us squirm as you ask us pointed or difficult questions by way of the chat, to which we will need to immediately and succinctly respond. And now, let's get underway. Coaches, the Elevate Conference theme is Refresh, Renew, and Reach. That is, refresh our spirits, renew our commitment to our work, and reach our full potential as educators. Worthy aspirations to be sure, but which of the three, refresh, renew, reach, is personally feeling the most urgent to you at this moment? Why?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Silence means I go first.
I don't know. Renew
I think
comes to
refresh.
mind. Oops.
Refresh me. Refresh a lot to me.
Marie, you're breaking up like a cookie.
It's the internet out here in Grays Harbor. It's not always the best. I apologize.
Hear you now. Keep going.
Go for it, Marie.
All right, let's see. If I turn my camera off, I think it maybe will be better.
We can hear you. Keep
Okay.
going.
So yeah, I think refresh. I always September back to school, and being a teacher working in the education field, this time of year always makes me think of that new start and that refresh. And recently I've changed work positions too. So I think my brain is just kind of on that refresh train.
Yeah, I definitely think refreshing is the most important to me as well, because I think refreshing allows you to get out of whatever situation you're in currently, and whether it's just stretching or going outside and getting some fresh air. For me, I feel like I've been home for 19 months and kind of feeling like I have cabin fever, and I forget to go outside just to go get a fresh breath of air, and can't believe how much that actually feels rejuvenating. And and making sure that you are treating yourself and having an unhealthy snack every now and then, napping when possible, definitely makes me feel like I'm ready to tackle whatever task is next.
What comes to mind for me is renewing and a little bit about renewing our commitment or re-renewing. But like you said, Chris, we've been home for a gazillion months now. And I remember when they were like, we're going home for 4 weeks or we're going home for 6 weeks. And in my mind was like, yeah, we're not going home that long. And yet here we are. And so we've been doing our work so differently. And, it soon we'll be back in the field, and it's good if it's different. And so it's kind of re-renewing that, and with providers, kind of really rebuilding relationships and rejoining with them. And so I've been giving that a lot of thought about. It's different when you're doing it through Zoom or on the phone, but to actually be, 3D or 4D and all that comes with it, it's giving me a lot of thoughts and time for pause and reflection, but I'm excited about it too.
I couldn't decide between refresh or reach. Refresh to me was, kind of my go-to at first because of, it's, that time of year, like Marie, you shared that, as an educator, it's that time of year where you feel excited and, childhood memories come back to me of the new school year, new teacher, new clothes, new shoes, all those things that kind of spur that your childhood feeling of refresh. But then, after listening to Dr. Sharon and I started thinking about reaching. And, after that COVID, or after, we're still doing it, oh my Lord, people are just like parked in pain, being stuck and just reacting, as she shared. And so reaching seems to be what's really calling out to me more so. Reach out from that burden, take what we've learned and be creative. So reach out there, get out of just the muck, and what we want to be rather than what we've been, and be creative and reach out. Just, reach for the passion that drives us. And that's where I'm at this point.
I would say reach as well. Since for me, reaching, stretching, trying to grow as a person and a professional is so bound up with the feeling that I'm being, sometimes it's just a feeling I'm being overworked, but most of the time it's a feeling that I'm being refreshed and renewed through doing that reaching. And that's what I hope to be able to at least occasionally call forth in other humans I'm interacting with, who are weary, understandably, and somehow able to help folks reconnect to the fact that when we're doing that growing, we didn't necessarily ask to have to grow as quickly as we're having to grow, and we didn't necessarily get to set the terms of the growth, but that growth is a great privilege, maybe the greatest privilege of being a human. And growing involves stretching, and stretching, as I know from getting up in the morning and trying to get limber, stretching can be a little bit hard at first. It doesn't always feel comfortable. Realistically, couch coaches, how do we even talk about restoring people's spirits, though, when we're more than a year and a half into a pandemic that regrettably keeps on giving? Let's face it, people are weary, fed up. On top of that, we can't seem to agree on much of anything as a society. Where have we gone wrong? What are we going to do about it all? How's that? Chew on that for a moment.
Just real quick, Mike, we were talking about how we prioritize refreshing, renewing, and reaching. I do want to just give an opportunity to people that are in here with us to type in the chat if you want to about what you feel like is more important as well, and how you kind of cope with those things. We would love to get some input as well. But what pertaining to what you're saying, Mike, thinking about, I talked about refreshing, but thinking about renewing as well, as a provider, this last 19 months has been a lot of, well, there's been a lot of like mental and emotional clutter, I'd say. And it's a matter of how do you shake the cobwebs? And as a provider, you're feeling like you're in this almost like a hamster wheel, right? Kind of just stuck in a rut, and thinking about how can you shake yourself out of it. Um, you know, I think the biggest thing for me is always coming back to why you're in the field and what's important to you about the work that you do. You know, reorganizing your priorities and reevaluating your commitments to the field, and allowing yourself to let go of the past and make room for new things, and maybe even committing to decisions you've been putting off, like early achievers revisions. And um, yeah, I don't know.
We
I
got to
think,
balance it all. I mean, it's all important. Oh, Marie, go ahead, because I know you're having internet challenges. Go ahead.
Adrian, you and I just want to keep talking at the same time because we're such good friends.
I know.
But what I think something that I remind those that I work with and myself and my children and basically anyone who listens, so all of you today, is finding joy in the journey. Right? There's going to be bumps and lumps all along the road. But maybe one of those rocks can be a shiny rock. I'm a visual person, right? So it's like, yeah, we're going up a hill, or there's a lot of, not great things happening, but where can we find those little tiny moments of joy, or where can we find those little tiny successes? And so, the provider might have 90 things that they shared with us that are on their frustration plate, but help them find maybe even that one. Yes, give them space to be able to voice that and to share that for their own emotional needs, but also help them to find, like, even if it's just one little thing that happened, finding those little moments of joy so we can hold on to that.
Yeah, that's something that came up in one of the sessions I was in yesterday, or the day before, about when there's so much negativity, how important it is for you to find the smallest positive, and how much that can be the catalyst to turning things around. It's just reframing. I think it was, yeah, reframing kind of what's in front of you and finding the positive, so that you can begin to start another journey down a road of positivity, and get away from all this stuff that's always negative. You turn on the news and it's negative, and you go to work and it's negative, and it's like, how do you find joy in what you're doing? You got to find it somewhere, and even if it's the smallest thing, it's a start.
And something from that people talk about, especially with mental health, is one, we have asked ourselves, kids, parents, everybody, to be resilient in the last, however, year and a half. We are constantly being resilient and reinventing resiliency, whether that's an art project, some of us went on a sourdough kick. We binge watched a lot. My Netflix is like on fire. But for mental health, there's a saying of, it's okay to not be okay. And we want to find the joy, but we also have to take a moment to make space for that. It is really okay to just say, this sucks, or it has been really hard. And I imagine, what our providers are with, we're face to face, they're going to want to unload, about how much has not, joy and things that have been wonderful, but they may just want to say, this has really sucked. And yeah, it has. And it's been, and I'm getting internet unstable. Well, that's not new.
And they have the right to. They really do. I mean, really, when you think about it, there's nobody to talk to. They've been as isolated, other than their parents that come to their doorstep, and they can't stand there very long because who knows. And so, if we're the person that with those ears are just being compassionate enough to listen and to actually have some empathy to share with them that we are here to listen and be and supportive of that. You know, all this stuff that's gone down, they really have lost their passion in what they're doing, or they at least lost sight of it. So how are we going to ignite it? That's a real good question, and it takes a lot of creativity. It depends on the person, of course. So I didn't mean to go rambling on there, Adrian. You had a thought there, and of course I jumped in.
No, it's perfect. Thank you for taking that, because my internet's going wonky, but we need a bonfire of spark. You know, it's not, and little bonfires, you know, little matches all over. I don't know why I'm using the bonfire analogy and matches, but there you are. But we need it. I'm not a fire starter, but
no forest fires.
But we're gonna, yeah, no forest fires. It's been a rough year. But we're gonna need all of that. And for ourselves too. We can't forget that we are the them and they are us as well.
And that's why I enjoy my job so much, because especially now thinking about, I'm not just an early achievers coach, I'm an early learning coach, and there's a lot more to early learning than just early achievers. And right now providers are not even thinking about early achievers, right? They're more worried about where are they going to find teachers? How are they going to build enrollment? How are they going to, stay on top of health and safety? And
background
sometimes
checks, band-aids,
yeah,
band-aids, background checks, goes on and on and on.
but like you said, Viv, sometimes we're the only people they talk to. We're the only adult that they get to talk to outside of the parents that they talk to for maybe a couple minutes between drop off and pickup. And so allowing them to just vent, man, that's powerful. Just to listen.
That's mental
right?
health.
Sometimes you want someone to just listen,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, sometimes the agenda is just to let it all out. That's the agenda. And that is okay.
A provider is not going to be able to fully engage with the child when there's so much internal, right? If our internal stress bucket is overflowing, it's going to be really hard to help the children. And so that's why, yeah, I think and I love that too, the early learning coach, I think is in going in with that mindset of an early learning coach, knowing that maybe the first few times we see them in person, there's going to be a lot more conversation around just life in general and thoughts and feelings. And maybe come January, February, then we'll maybe be able to focus it more toward like specific goals and early learning and life as we knew it pre-pandemic.
But even just the title, like, so when I was with CCR, we were early achievers coaches, and when I came to the Northwest region, it was early learning coach, and just the title alone reframed how I thought about my job. And so it's funny how just words can change your outlook on things. And so, I think it's something that should be maybe adopted somewhere else. I don't know. But just the idea is great. No, what I'm saying is, I'm just saying, the thought of doing more than just early achievers and being there for providers as a whole, regardless of what they're early achievers or not, because we still work with providers that are not enrolled in early achievers, and they have the same wants and needs as everyone else. Oh, and I stand corrected. Early learning coach is a statewide change. Thanks, Laura and Tamara and Bob.
Can I show you something?
Yes, please.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it because I can't see myself.
Early learning coach, Tamara Jack, QRS, early learning coach.
That was my first name tag 11 years ago when I was a coach in the pilot years. Anyway.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and just the words you spoke of, how meaningful just changing a title or the power of words can have, and the interaction we have with people, we talked about already, and but I'm just going on that mind frame right now of the power of words and what we say or what we don't say, and how does that impact the providers we're working with, and our timing of what we say. Yeah, are we recognizing what they're feeling, or are we just I just think about something stupid I did the other day. I had this agenda item and I was talking to this provider and going on and on and on, and I was like, the provider stops me and says, do you know what's happening today on my plate? And I was just like, oh my gosh, I forgot that I had all this stuff that I was so engrossed in that I forgot to even think about her. But again, actually, I'm actually saying a couple of different things here regards to power of words, and then giving opportunities to talk. So anyhow, I'm rambling again, but
Oh my gosh, you guys, I just remembered I had lunch in the oven. It smells so bad in my house right now. It's burnt, but it's okay. I'm alive.
Is the fire alarm going off?
It's not, but it smells a bit smoky in here.
I just love that Chris reminded everyone to eat lunch, and he is the one who tried to burn the house down and forgot his own. So here's our nice shout out again. Eat lunch, self-care, don't burn your house down.
Right. Feel free to go check the oven at any moment.
All right, Michael, what's next, buddy?
Mike, you there?
You gotta
Is
unmute.
he froze?
What did make sense? Of course. I still don't have the unmute thing down after 20 months, but I have belief in my ability to eventually master it. I was going to propose, as presumptuous as it is, for just a moment to be in line with the power of words, for just a moment to be psychologists to the entire society, all 320 million of us, or however many there are. Because when I look at what's gone wrong, I feel like there are many things that are systemically unhealthy about United States society right now. And I won't go into them in detail, but something that I see at a psychological level that fascinates me and disturbs me both is that I think a fundamental human need is to be noticed and heard. And I think that's probably more important than to be agreed with. People disagree with me all the time, often for very good reasons. And I'm perfectly willing to say, yeah, frequently I'm going to be wrong or off base about things. But to really see another person metaphorically is so important. And it feels to me like we've got a society where we've got 320 million people screaming at the top of their lungs about this, that, and the other thing. We've all got our pet causes and our points of view. And it just feels to be psychologically like nobody feels like they're really being authentically noticed or heard. And so when I think about making a connection with people, words are a vehicle or a means, but that underlying sense, when people start screaming louder and louder, it tells me they don't feel heard. And how we break that cycle somehow all the systemic stuff that we need to deal with that's desperately overdue. A lot of it's been overdue since the founding of this country. Racial equity, for instance, we've got to deal with that stuff. And I don't want to let anybody off on that endeavor. But somehow it still starts with seeing, again, metaphorically, seeing the other human being and having them feel that that there's some authentic curiosity and compassion. And I think that's what early learning providers, along with the rest of us, need, are big doses of that. And so if I remain an optimist that if somehow we can do that, then a lot of other things become possible. But it has to start there, because otherwise we'll just be talking, but we'll be talking past each other, at each other, and not getting any place. Okay, I'm stepping down from a briefly usurped role of being psychologist to the United States.
You're here.
You're getting some love in the chat box too,
I was
Mike.
gonna, there's a question in the chat box. And so do we have to see in order to be seen? I like that question. And I kind of was, can we go on that tangent?
Marie, going on tangents is what we're all about. Let's go for it.
Okay. So Sue said, she's wondered, do you have to see in order to be seen? And I think so. To me, there's that give and take and that back and forth. If you don't see others and how they need to be respected, how they need to be heard, it's going to be harder for you to advocate that for yourself, and be aware of it. Like, hey, I'm trying to say something and people aren't understanding me or people aren't seeing me. What do I need to do, or how do I need to approach this differently? And so I think we learn from others when we see them, when we hear them, when we value them, and that helps us to do that better for ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree, Marie. And I just wanted to point out, Bob said, unfortunately, some people are used to having their voices elevated and not used to listening to others, which some people have said is agreeable. So what message can we relay to those people? Like what do we tell them to help them to become better listeners?
So can you repeat the question?
There was no real question. I was just going off a comment in the chat about people that are used to having their voices elevated and not used to listening to others. How do we get those people to start listening? Like, what message do we get across to them, and how do we do that?
Teach the value of pause. Like sometimes you just need to stop. You need to stop talking. You need to stop being that loud voice, right? Those people that are used to, I'm always the loudest, so my words mean the most because I talk the most or I talk the loudest. I think helping people learn the importance of pause and like, no, you don't always have to have a comment. You don't always have to say something. You don't always have to have the final say and those types of things. A lot of that, I think there needs to be some more conversation and education and support around like, nope, you need to be quiet and it's okay to be quiet.
This definitely ties in with the dynamics of who's on top and who's not in this society. And so I can say, as an older white male, I am by virtue of the dynamics of this society, I am on top. I am routinely on top. I don't even have to think about it. I'm on top whether I want to be or not. And so I feel like at a one-to-one level, with any other human being, I'm going to endeavor to the best of my ability to be authentically accepting of them as a human being. And at the same time, I know as an older white guy, our voices have had an outsized influence and oftentimes a malicious influence on the development of this society for hundreds of years. We could talk a little bit less, and that's okay. And we could show some appropriate humility, and that likewise is pretty essential. So I think it is possible challenge people at an individual level in a way that is not disaffirming of their humanity. And when we start talking about working at institutional and systems level, then I feel like, yeah, you are going to get challenged in your capacity as if you are, for instance, an older white male in the society, in your capacity in some kind of leadership or responsibility role, you must be challenged. And as an individual trying to connect with you as an individual, I can try to help you to become a little more gracious about accepting those challenges as not only inevitable, but a good thing and an opportunity for you to do some growing. But we can simultaneously work for a more decent, equitable world that our young children can be growing into than the one they're now growing into. And we can also accept people as human beings. Somehow I feel like you can do both of those. You can do both of those things. But that doesn't excuse pointing out the sometimes difficult and even disgusting aspects of the highly inequitable society in which our early learning system, along with everything else, is anchored.
Just want to point out there are some amazing comments in the chat right now. And it makes me feel like we need to have a bigger podcast session with more voices, because there are some things being said in there that are very true and eye-opening. And I love the different perspective that people are sharing. And so if you have a chance, please pop in there and have a read and add to it as we continue to have this conversation.
In regards to our conversation, and I'm going to take it just a little bit different way, just for just a second. I'm thinking of what you first said, Chris, was how do you teach people to listen? And I'm thinking back to my days when I worked not only in a classroom, but teaching adults about children, and having them listen to children. What do you hear children saying? What do you hear your children asking? Take it into the place where they stop and stop assuming and listening and watching and becoming curious. And then having a reflective conversation regarding what the interpretation of, what you heard, what do you think it meant? Where can we go from here? So that's the kind of like that bottom line of, where can we start from in listening? So when we get to those higher levels of questioning equity and equality and what's right for regards to systems, at least maybe that person can stop and listen to the other people too.
You just said something really powerful, Viv. I just have to say my thanks to you for mentioning that one of the hardest things to remember to do as an early learning provider, and one of the most important things that we can do, is to remind people to really pay attention to what's going on, to really see and hear, literally as well as metaphorically, to see and hear each child in that classroom or family home space, and to notice and to pick up on cues, to notice what's going on. And what we're really talking about today maybe is holding ourselves as adults to, not only doing that with children, but holding ourselves as adults to doing that with one another. And that requires empathy and curiosity, and sometimes just being quiet for a minute.
Shut the heck up.
So in the chat, Bob said you have the same argument over and over with new people. As a coach and as a person, that happens, right? So in our professional lives, that happens. And then in our personal lives, that happens too. And so I'm going to, because it's me and I can, just take like a sharp left. How do we, thinking about that refresh, renew kind of mindset, how do we keep ourselves feeling refreshed when you feel like maybe you're circling the drain? You're like, oh my gosh, I've had this conversation how many times with this person, or I've had this conversation how many times this week, with various different people. So, personally or professionally, how do we keep ourselves going when sometimes you're like, oh my God, if I have to say this one more time, so, I have goats and I do goat yoga. Like that's literally the extent of the craziness that happens out here on the harbor. But sometimes I just have to be like, all right, Zoom, I'm putting you to bed for half an hour and I'm just going to go eat animal crackers with Fresco. That is the name of one of my goats. And we just go chill on the yoga mat with animal crackers. So what do you guys do? When you just feel like you've had that same conversation so many times with either the same person or like within that week?
Had this with yesterday with a provider who needs a lot of support and help technology wise. And she was asking about, she hasn't rated yet. So she hasn't gotten her quality improvement award. She has questions about need-based grant. Her state, I need you to come and help. And I've talked over and over about, we're not back, like as of today, we're not back in the field. We are hopeful, but we don't know. Here's what I could do through the phone and over Zoom with you. And she had mentioned her previous coach that was always helpful. And I was starting to feel like, well, I'm trying here. Like, but your previous coach could like walk in, and I joined with her during this time at home. So I've actually never been to her place, and we've never really have seen each other face to face. And so in that moment of frustration, I had to take a step back and remind myself of, okay, I'm feeling this, but what is she feeling? And what is she really needing right now in this moment? As much as I'm getting frustrated, but it's also about, she has a frustration that she's expressing, and of really wanting that support, feeling disconnected. And I flat out asked her, and we had an interpreter involved as well, so that made it a little bit more challenging, but just what does support look like for you? What does help look like for you right now? For me to get a sense of, is there something I'm not doing, or is this just an overall feeling she's having of, I need help, my needs are not being met. And I think we landed on, and she's like, no, you're helpful, you're being helpful. And I just acknowledge, like, I do hear, I hear you, believe it or not, I see you. And try to let her know that I'm doing my best I can. And we're both struggling through this together. We made a longer appointment for next week, just to have some deeper conversations about her needs. But taking that step back, to what you asked, Marie, is like taking that step back and really looking at it from a different perspective of what someone else is needing, and putting perhaps my own needs aside. Now, that's not to say that I, after getting off the phone with her, did not go to the freezer and grab Ben and Jerry's and had a couple big spoonfuls and sat there, stood in front of the fridge and was like, okay, don't finish the pint today, right this second, but, okay, take another, take another scoop. And it's like, all right, back to work. I felt better. So sometimes it is going to, those things that, the doctors and all say don't do, but sometimes you gotta support your feelings and emotions with a little treat.
I'm just thinking, what's in my freezer? Like I got popsicles with chocolate on it. I got some yogurt bars. I'm like, oh, that's not as good as Ben and Jerry's. But then again, I didn't burn anything like somebody did on our panel.
I gotta tell you, frozen bananas, like the chocolate covered frozen bananas, are like my jam. Like the last couple months, like it's because you're getting your potassium.
That was an excuse. I love it.
Antioxidants because of the dark chocolate. Great.
Adrian, you may have a future. Seriously, you may have a future helping people devise justifications for their bad habits with references to things like potassium and antioxidants. This is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I kind of feel like submitting a list to you of all my bad habits and having you reframe it for me. That's part of what coaches can help us to do, right?
Yeah,
I welcome the challenge.
Speaking of challenges, what a beautiful segue. We are at the 15-minute mark before the end of this recording session. And that means that we are going to be moving into our lightning round. The rules are pretty simple in lightning round. We take turns fielding questions from you. We have to answer them not in our usual slow, ponderous, thoughtful manner, but very quickly. This is your chance, those of you who have joined us today, to further fill the chat box and call on us. So pose questions for us in chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can in the time we have left. And time is precious because as Laura Roses shares up questions with us, we have to respond in 15 seconds or less each. And in the event that one of us, even me, is overstaying our 15-second welcome, we have a definitive reminder we're moving on. So this is your chance. This is your chance to put us on the spot. Please, please do so. And Laura, we're assuming that you can keep up with the blizzard of beautiful questions that are about to follow, and we'll try responding.
All right. First question, favorite early childhood guru and why?
Favorite childhood what?
Early childhood guru.
Guru. Lori Malaguzzi. Can't see his name.
I'm totally drawing a blank.
Eric Erickson, Floyd Church, Piaget.
I'm so trying to blank. There goes my 15 seconds.
I have to be honest, probably for me, Bev Boss, who died some while back, but played an auto harp and was cheerfully irreverent about almost everything. Loved that spirit.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
Not early learning, but Marva Collins.
Barbara Collins.
Did you just say Marvel Comics?
No. Marva Collins.
Oh,
from,
I'm sorry.
She was an educator in Chicago.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I heard what you heard, Chris, so it's all good.
Jeez. All right.
Laura Sabas, ask a different question.
What is the best thing to ask a brand new toddler teacher?
What flavor
Will you be
ice cream
staying
does she
long?
like?
What are your feelings on bowel movements? Because you will see every color, every shape, every smell. So I think, just making sure they're comfortable with bathroom needs, because it's going to be a bigger chunk of their job than I think they realize.
No pun
What
intended,
were you
right?
thinking?
Oh, wow. I began my early learning career as a toddler coach, and instead of people questioning my sanity, I wish somebody had just told me, it's kind of hard and might not even get better, but it sure matters.
Mm,
Nice.
yeah, good save there. That's good.
All right, next question.
Yes.
What is the best advice you have ever received that you still use today?
It's not how much you spend, it's how much you save. Changed my life.
Oh,
Whether or
wow.
not you pass math, the sun is still coming up tomorrow. In a moment of when I probably wasn't going to pass math in school. That was from my grandma.
Oh, I have to think about this one. I'll be over my 15 seconds just in thinking.
Well,
These are good questions.
Yeah.
we weren't expecting that the questions were going to be at this level of confidence, exposing us so badly, but stalling for time, because we make the rules, we can unmake them. I would say best advice that I've ever gotten, seriously, which came to me earlier on in my life, when somebody at a meeting where I was talking an awful lot, somebody at a meeting told me, you should spend more time listening and less time talking. That really, it caught me off guard in that moment, but I carried it with me the rest of my life.
Which is funny, Mike, because Mike used to be my supervisor, and when I first had a meeting with him, my initial thought was, man, I wish this guy would talk a little more, please. Jesus.
I think the best advice I got was follow your heart.
Live and love. What is it? No, God, it's on the wall in my house. I just got to walk down the hall apparently, but love and live every day like tomorrow might not happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
Okay, ready for the next question?
You got it.
I think so.
But ask it anyway.
Yeah, that's a good one. What is the funniest thing that has ever happened to you in early learning?
Oh, chicken poop. There, Bob, this one's for you. I brought eggs to a center and helped them set up a whole life cycle thing. And then the baby chicks hatched and we read the book, Are You My Mother? And the little chicken walked around circle time and it stopped in front of a kid and pooped on the circle time carpet. And the little boy was like, it chose me as its mother. And so it was the funniest thing because there was a live baby chick walking around and then it just walked around the circle and whoever it pooped in front of somehow in the minds of 3-year-old, that's who it chose to be its parent. So that was probably like the funniest thing that has ever happened in the 5 years of being a coach.
Okay, wasn't funny at the moment, but I can kind of laugh about it now, kind of. Was the moment where I was on a site visit with a center. Mike, you've had the site, and a meeting with the director. This is a licensor referral, and in walks one of the teachers, and she hands me her insurance card. And I'm like, why are you handing me your insurance card? And she's like, because you're gonna need it. Mind you, this is like a Friday at 4, because she had backed into my car. And so, so Friday at 4, dealing with insurance and all that. And I don't know how fast she was going, but man, she must have floored it back. And so I just stood there, was like, yeah, our site visit's done. Like, don't restrain toddlers anymore in the high chair. Like we're done. So I can laugh now.
Wow.
Well, I've had many funny moments in my career, but one of the best was in my first few months of teaching. I was a toddler teacher, and one day I was, for reasons that I won't now remember, I was covering nap time with the preschoolers. And there were these two kids sitting on mats near each other, and they were talking. And the thing is, I would have wanted to talk too, so I didn't really hold it against them. And one of them said to the other, have you ever noticed that all the adults in this land have hair growing in their noses? And that made me think about myself a little bit differently. And it kind of woke me up to the fact that kids will say pretty much anything. And it will always feel out of context to you because you're not a kid. And that's actually one of the great joys of being around children.
Can we go on to the next question, please? Can't top that one, Mike.
Yeah.
Next question. What song best describes your life?
Oh, yeah. It's
What is it? Whoa, living on a prayer.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's basically my life.
That was good, Marie. I don't know if I seriously can't think of like what.
Good question.
Well, for me right now, I think it changes throughout the years. But currently, with kind of the state of coaching, it's Sound of Silence. 'Cause
I'm taking a pass on this
Oh, I
one.
like that one, Tamara. You Are the Champions.
Yeah.
That's good.
I keep thinking of like artists like, okay, what song by U2 or by this person or that
Yeah.
person, or save us, Laura.
There was a question earlier on in the chat bomb that somebody would just like to know who is on our panel, who y'all are, and what region you're from.
Oh,
15 seconds, go.
All right, Marie, go ahead. Explain your situation.
yeah.
My name is Marie, and last week I worked in the King and Pierce region. As of Monday, I work out in Grays Harbor County as a home visitor. I work with in a Birth to 3 program. So I actually am joining this Elevate conference as a guest speaker because I just love Elevate and I love all of you guys. And I had to be selfish and have one last like hurrah and goodbye. So that's me out here on the bog.
All right, I can go next. My name is Chris. I'm a coach out of the Northwest region, Everett office. And I met this band of hooligans when I worked at CCR as of a couple months ago.
Chris is on loan to Northwest, Elaine. At least that's what I keep saying to myself. I'm Adrian, and I am an early learning specialist coach, something in King and Pierce region as well.
Where do you live, Adrian?
I live in the beautiful neighborhood of Ballard, of Seattle.
I'm Viv, and I'm an early learning coach. And though I do work in King, I live in Granite Falls, which happens to be a hop, skip, and a jump from where Chris lives. So,
Hint, hint.
Adrian will not be happy. You stop that, Chris.
And I'm Mike Kasperzak. I am the internal professional development coordinator at Childcare Resources. Though until February of this year, I was a coach lead. We have
Yes, go ahead,
Chris,
Mike.
Go for
I was
it.
just gonna say we've only got a couple minutes, and just
Yes.
reading in the chat, a lot of people have said, do we have other recordings? And this has been a lot of fun. So I want to just plug a link that has some episodes that we did previously on some other topics that we did. They're not as long as this one, but they are, again, kind of the same format, lighthearted, but also trying to incorporate some things that are relevant to our field as well. So feel free to have a look when you have time.
And there are some episodes that haven't been released yet that will come in the future.
Thanks for joining us during your lunch time. Really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Some of you stayed the entire time.
Amazing.
I can't believe it. Well, this is great.
No indigestion happening there, is there?
So I guess we're about at an end. What are we going to do with the last minute of recording time?
Oh, play our theme song for sure.
We have to do an outro. Hello.
Yeah, we
Oh,
do.
The outro.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
man.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
even
right.
have
Yeah.
that prepped.
Oh, someone said
no.
sing.
No.
no.
Dang.
you're not with
Oh, let's sing. Let's do a round of row, row, row your boat.
Row, row, row,
Row your
boat.
boat.
Check
Row,
the
row,
stream.
reboat.
See, you're causing people to leave now.
I know.
They're abandoning us.
The whole thing.
That
But
number's going down.
Tamara wants to direct us. We need a Tamara, you can do it. You can do it.
You can do it.
Jumping
You
ship.
can do it.
Yeah, thanks for everyone sticking
This has
around
been
and
fun.
hanging out with
Thanks
us.
to all of you for being
This is
here
so
today.
much fun.
Yeah.
And thank you, Laura, for attempting to wrangle us and being our producer today. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I had a blast. Thank you for tonight.
I think that's a wrap.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Couch Coaching. Bye.